What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog back in Brawl this time with a Godzilla Brawl list. That's right, I think enough with the standard version yesterday, so I wanted to jump into some Brawl as well. Godzilla, in case you're not familiar, need a quick refresher: 5 mana, 7/3 trample, lethal damage dealt to creatures you control, determined by their power rather than their toughness. So effectively, this makes this a 5 mana, 7/7 with trample. So that's a pretty sweet deal. And it's one of these Godzilla cards from Ikoria that just has not seen a ton of play, but it's a very sweet card, and so we're going to keep that fun train rolling on here. So we're going to keep a similar theme to what we did yesterday with emphasizing creatures with higher power, even if they have lower toughness, because Godzilla is basically going to negate that, and so they're going to get basically their full value and then some. So we have things like Kargan Intimidator, which is a 3/1 for 2 mana, and with our Zilortha out becomes a 3/3, of course, and still has all these activated abilities, which we don't really have a ton of warrior synergy, obviously, but it can still be relevant in certain situations. Some decent removal here in Roil Eruption, which can also just go to face, potentially kill our opponent, or do Planeswalkers as well, 3 damage to any target. Thundering Rebuke here, pretty solid removal as well, 4 damage to a creature or a Planeswalker. 4 seems like it's a pretty sweet spot, so it should be very useful. Caryatid here, tapping for 1 mana of any card, gives us a little bit of ramp since we're a little more mid-rangey. Lotus Cobra also gives us the landfall ramp trigger, and also being a 2/1, kind of has that little bit of synergy with Zilortha for what it's worth. Scavenging Ooze, just a good value creature, kind of a staple if you're in Brawl to be, if you're in green and Brawl, to be running the Scavenging Ooze, make room for it somewhere. We're also running Anax, even though we're kind of split between kind of green and red for Devotion. We can still get the Devotion up reasonably to a reasonable level. To make this worthwhile. Obviously, it's not going to be as big as like a mono red list, but we still get this up to 4 or 5 power without too much effort, really. And it's just a good value creature in general because of, if they kill one of our other creatures, we just get 1/1 tokens to replace itself. So that's something decent. Bonecrusher Giant, just a good creature in general, of course. Phoenix of Ash, this actually has some nice synergy because of its active ability, where it gets +2/+0 until end of turn, so making Zilortha so it has a balanced power and toughness essentially with our Zilortha out. And Escape, of course, works really great if we're up against a removal heavy type of deck. Shatterskull Charger, just a pretty solid creature here, 4/3, trample haste for 3, or we can kick it for 5 mana, have it come down as a 5/4, and it'll stick around on the battlefield because it has a counter on it. Tuktuk Rubblefort. This card I've been really trying to find a home for and trying to use this for, but it's just not very good. But I'm going to force it here because I do want to give them our beasties, our Godzilla and things like that. I want to give them haste and just try to, once we get our big dudes down, we want to close out the game as quickly as possible and not give our opponent a chance to really recover. Broken Wings, since we're obviously a little bit light on artifact and enchantment hate, and also ways to deal with flyers. We have the Phoenix of Ash, obviously, with flying, and we have a couple other things with like reach and whatnot, but we're pretty light, so this gives us some more removal and just kind of a useful utility card, really. The Garruk's Harbinger with that higher power here, and also has hexproof and black, so against certain matchups can be really, really powerful. And if it deals damage, of course, you have to look for a that many cards deep, based on how much damage it does for a creature or a Garruk Planeswalker, which we are running. Llanowar Vision gives us more ramp and some card draw here. 3 mana, 2/2, pretty reasonable. Cultist gives us more graveyard hate, and another way for us to kind of get our Devotion, since this counts both red and green. Devotion, definitely possible to get up to 7 Devotion here for our Cultist. Otherwise, it's just really solid to kind of eat up graveyards and just ping down our opponent while gaining us life, or potentially ramping us as well. Rada, since we're more mid-range, we definitely love to run Rada here. She makes a fine commander herself, but we're just going to have her as part of the 60 or 59, if you will. 3/3, of course, first strike on our turn, and we can play lands from the top of our library. That's pretty sweet. 6 mana to activate her ability, +X/+X, where X is the number of lands you control. In a Brawl format, that's very, very powerful. Embereth Skyblazer, another returning from the standard deck yesterday. 4 mana, 4/3, it's flying on our turn, and we can pay 3 to give our creatures +X/+0, where X is the number of opponents you can have, whereas, of course, it's arena, so it's going to be 1. We're running the Garruk Planeswalker, which mostly is going to give our creatures +3/+3 and trample. And if they already have trample, that extra +3/+3 is still pretty powerful effect, and for ones that don't have trample, well, then that's just pretty sweet. 2 green pips for our Devotion count, for what it's worth as well. And we can make 3/3 beast tokens while we're at it. And there are greens that will count towards Devotion as well. Gemizer, just a solid card here, definitely belongs in pretty much any Brawl list that's in green. Quest and Beast, kind of the same thing. Renata here gives us some more devotion synergy, as she has 2 green pips herself, and her power is equal to our devotion to green. She'll at least be a 2/3, and each other creature enters with a +1 counter on it. So especially with some of our trample creatures like our Godzilla and whatnot, that's a pretty powerful effect. Leafkin Avenger is a card I haven't really played around with too much, but seems like it has a nice little home here. 4 mana, 4/3. Does tap for green for each creature with power 4 or greater you control. So some nice ramp here. And then we can pay 7 and not even tap it to deal damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. So that's a pretty expensive effect. 8 mana to do potentially 4 damage, but you know, in a Brawl format, it's actually not terrible. Proud Wadbonder. So we do have kind of a trample sub-theme. Obviously, our Godzilla commander has trample, and this says all of our creatures with trample can assign their combat damage as though they were not blocked. And of course, it itself has trample 4/3. Lukka, just trying to find a home for this card, Planeswalker. +1 gives us basically card advantage since we are fairly creature heavy. We can -2 once we don't need our our mana dorks or Lotus Cobras. Ilysian Caryatid, once they've kind of run their course, we don't really need them anymore. We can just -2, exile them, and go digging for another creature. Ox of Agonas just gives us some nice card advantage, kind of in the late game. Very nice recursive threat, of course, with the escape, and has the power toughness differential that we're kind of looking for with our synergy here. Also running Purphoros as our second way to give our creatures haste. We do need 5 red devotion, so that's where things like Anax, Lukka, Ox of Agonas, things like that come in. Even the Proud Wadbonder, has pretty good devotion for either side. So all of our creatures have haste with Purphoros out, and we can pay 3 to put a red creature specifically onto the battlefield, and of course it'll gain haste, but we'd have to sacrifice it at our next end step. But that's actually a pretty powerful effect if we can cheat 2 creatures in and kind of close out the game, especially if one of those is like a Terror of the Peaks. Then we get the enter to the battlefield trigger, or we have a Terror of the Peaks out and we cheat a couple other things in, and just kill our opponent with the activated ability that way. And Terror of the Peaks, of course, with a triggered ability, being able to deal damage to creature's power to any target. And of course it's a 5/4, which becomes a 5/5 with our Godzilla online. Or Garruk, just a solid heroic creature here. Solid value creature. Vivian, since we are very creature heavy, lets us keep digging for creatures off the top of our library, and she makes 3/3 tokens. As well as her -2, where we can, cast one of our bigger creatures and get something that's maybe a little bit smaller. Cast our Elder Gargroth and go get a Questing Beast or a Renata or whatever it is we might feel like we need at that time. Quartzwood Crasher, another one of our trample payoffs here. 6 mana or 5 mana, 6/6, pretty insane. Trample, and of course, whenever creatures with trample deal combat damage to a player, we'll get an XX token, where X is equal to the amount of trample damage dealt. Embercleave, of course, works well with all of our trample effects, especially things like Quartzwood Crasher, and of course, gives trample to the creatures that don't already have it. So this works well in so many situations. And since we're going to be having lots of mana, we don't really care about the fact that we're not necessarily go wide per se. We can still get pretty great value off of this, especially with things like Moraug in play. 6/6 for 6 mana. Each creature gets +1/+0 each time it is attacked, and with the landfall trigger on our second main phase after combat, we get an additional combat phase and our creatures untap. Kogla gives us some more removal and a big body here, 7/6, which of course becomes a 7/7 that fights up to 1 creature we don't control, and when it attacks, we store an artifact or enchantment on our defending player's side. Turn Timber Symbiosis gives some nice value here for digging for more creatures, or it could just be a land. Great Hand, just fantastic with the rest of our deck here, being for digging for more creatures. When we cast creatures, we can potentially dig for more creatures or whatever. Purphoros Intervention gives us some nice scalable removal, or potentially a way to just kill our opponent, making a X1 trample hasty threat. Shatterskull Smashing, just good removal or land, depending on what stage of the game we're in. Rest of the mana base kept it pretty simple. 8 Mountain, 8 Forest, 1 Crag Crown Pathway, 1 Rugged Highlands, 1 Temple Abandoned, 1 Bonders Enclave to go with all with our big beefy creatures to help us kind of like dig if we're kind of a little bit stuck. 1 Command Tower for the fixing, and Fabled Passage for the fixing as well. That's the deck. We'll jump into some games. Okay, up against Gadwick. I don't think I've seen Gadwick as a commander. This hand is super spicy, but it's super slow. I mean, Quest and Beast, not until we have nothing until turn 4, so I think we have to put that away. This is a little bit better. We just have an Anax on 3. I mean, Terror of the Peaks is a pretty sweet draw. We do need some more lands though to make this hand work, and hopefully our opponent doesn't do anything too crazy on us. And Forest is a perfect draw because we want to get this pathway down on red for our Anax. Obviously doing nothing until 3 with Anax isn't ideal start, but we're on the Brawl format, so a little bit slower. Opponent on mono blue, though, could be a bit challenging. We'll see what they're up to. Okay, so they're playing some creatures. Looks like they're just kind of trying to draw. Of course, Gadwick with the great draw ability. And now Cloud Concealer and Dealer Brace. Everything we've seen from them is about drawing cards. Do they have any payoff? I mean, Gadwick kind of incentivizes you to run instant speed spells. Alright, well, they're not running too many counters, at least. Looks like they're just kind of more on actual creatures, which is good for us. We don't want to see a bunch of counter your stuff deck. It's pretty unfun to play against. We're just going to jam our Questing Beast. We have 1 mana. It could be a bounce spell, which wouldn't be the worst with the Terror of the Peaks if we can actually get it to resolve. It is an unsummon. Yep. Well, it's not legal in Standard. For some reason, it is legal in Brawl. Not really sure why they have all these weird rules, or like the arena-only best-of-1 cards that are legal in Brawl. Like, I wish they would just simplify it and like not have these arena-only cards. Like, if you want them in Standard, just well, I'd love to play Terror of the Peaks, but we know that's not going to work out. So I think we just jam Godzilla. I'd rather run that into a counter spell because we can just get it later. Yep, Essence Scatter. Take that action. And no attacks. If they're not going to attack, I think I'm fine with just kind of playing the waiting game a little bit. Maybe get them to tap out with their Gadwick, and hopefully they don't have more bounce effects. Although guaranteed they're running, obviously, Petty Theft, Brazen Borrower, but at least in the Brawl format, it's only a 1 of, but we have seen the Unsummon. So guaranteed they're probably running Stern Dismissal, since that is a standard legal card. Kind of the downside with all of these 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're actually pretty close to just casting a Symbiosis. Do we just hold that? Maybe we'll just hold this Symbiosis. Do we want them to... I mean, they could easily block with the Gadwick, move it back to their command zone, and then just cast it for more value, although they already kind of have a full hand, so they could easily just hold out, hold on to the Gadwick in their command zone, and then just kind of play out what's in their hand, and then worry about Gadwick later. And I think we just kind of try to go face with these Terror of the Peaks triggers. Wow. That's super annoying. So they get a big old 5/5 flyer. We have to replay our Terror of the Peaks. They get a swing for a lot. I mean, we're not out of it, but we're definitely far behind. Oh boy. This is not looking too good. I think we need to try to deal with this Gadwick, so they don't keep tapping our stuff down. They do get to swing 5, put us down to 6. Let's see, so if we 1, 2, 3, 4. Dude, are you Purphoros? Alright, good game. They just kind of had everything. Alright, up against Yasharn. 2 forests? Come on, man. What the heck is that? Definitely taking that free mulligan. This is a lot better. You got the temple here. Probably just looking for more lands. Yeah, we'll take that. Gonna run out this ooze on 2, I guess. Even if it eats up a removal spell, it's not the worst. Although they're in Selesnya, so probably not running too much removal, but I can expect some Banishing Lights or similar effects, pacifism potentially. No, they're just ramping. Well, Phoenix is interesting. I doubt they have too much reach, so I think we'll just get our Rada online. We can kind of dig through our library. Okay, so we got the Visionary as an option. Alright, our opponent's not too worried about what we're doing. They're just gonna get their board set up. Garruk is okay. I don't mind shuffling it away though. Alright, got the forest in hand. Another red mana source. Wow. Okay. Just a couple lands to eat up with the Scavenging Ooze. Don't think it matters too much. Fire off Yasharn here. The draw card with the Uprising. Nice. I've got a full grip of cards. Oh, Skyclave, Pickaxe. We do have, so we'll eat that just because we can. We do have Kogla coming down. It might just be GG's here, especially we'll get the attack trigger. Alright, Great Henge. They have a Kogla of their own. Gonna fight our Kogla. Okay, so they trade. Cool. We could just swing with Rada here. That seems pretty decent. So what would that do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. Yeah, we just have lethal. Boom. Whew. That was a pretty Alright, against Ren and Siri. Haven't seen them in a while. That hand seems reasonable. We'll give it a try. A couple 2-drops here. Turn 1 cat. Sanctuary Cat. One of those arena-only cards. And the main serval. So putting up a nice little defense over there. Not much power. Cultivate for your Naya deck, sure. 2 mountains. Okay, so I'm guessing they have another land in hand. Yeah, pretty easy attacks here, really. Okay. Well, with the 1 toughness, we don't have very good attacks on our end, so just kind of play the waiting game, try to get set up. So Running Series is going to help them go wide. It's going to make things very difficult for us. And they have their 1 mana creature to actually get immediate value. Alright, well, attack request me, see if they want to trade their commander. Probably have enough mana to just replay it next turn. If they do, it might be worth trading off here. Going Hellhound trigger. Bolt Hound. Opponent's going super wide, a very beautiful curve for them. Nicely done. Looking at all of our creatures, they got 2 cards, 3 mana open. Yikes. Deals damage equal to the number of dogs you control. Cat, dog, 2, 3. They can deal 3 damage to something. this quest beast is kind of the only thing that's really given us a legitimate chance here. If this Terror of the Peaks lives, we'll definitely use our Zilortha to enter the battlefield and target their Ren Syria just to force them to replay it. Okay. Thrill of Possibility. I mean, the card says draw cards, but you have to discard to make it work. But I guess if you're running 3 colors and you want to make sure you have plenty of lands, I guess it gives you some way to kind of deal with those. Alright, we'll just play our Godzilla here. It's tempting to just get Rada online, but I think we'll go and go for our commander, see what they got. They did use a transformation on Terror of the Peaks and not our Godzilla, so there's that. Our opponent is so wide here, I'm not sure how we can recover. Taking a lot here. They have 4 mana open, could be Embercleave. Heroic Intervention. Well, we don't lose anything, but they don't lose anything either. We're missing another green source, unfortunately, to get our Kogla online. I guess we'll just rot it here. There's a mountain on top. And Gargaroth. Okay. I mean, they've finally ran out of cards here, but it's just a matter of time before they top deck something spicy here. Ah, man, this running series is going to pick us off. Still cannot find a green source. I mean, Gargaroth is pretty good. Well, their board state is so wide, I think we just have to wait and hope. So another dog for Red and Siri to pick off bigger and bigger things. We have Shatterskull Smashing for 5. For at least 5 next turn. And kill our Rada. They're just picking off our board and we can't really do anything. I mean, they're so wide, like, attacking is kind of not a good proposition for us. With the Selfless Savior, we can't even use the Shatterskull Smashing anymore. Or we could, just to get rid of it. We'll make it a 3/3. See what they do here. And throw a bunch of stuff in front of our Gargaroth, try to get rid of it. Not what I wanted to do, but you're giving me the angry emote when you're like got all this stuff going on? Bro, you're like So close to just taking over the game here. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4 dogs, so they can pick off anything besides Godzilla or a Gargaroth here. I mean, Kogla just has to fight the Savior because it's just going to sacrifice and protect whatever. Unfortunately, in Gruul colors, we're just light on removal. Wow, they can just go to face as well, any target. Yikes. Well, play the Quartzwood. Swing with the Gargaroth again. Get some of that Quartzwood Crasher value. That might have been just the card we needed. I'm going to gain life here. They're going to keep going in face. We're going to make sure we can stabilize. We're about to get some tokens anyway. Thanks to Trample and Double Strike, we'll get 2 7/7 tokens. Don't think they were reading the Quartzwood Crasher Embercleave situation properly there. I think the Crasher just saved our behind there, and the Embercleave on Gargaroth. Alright, it was not looking good for a while there, but I think we've finally stabilized. I mean, they just top deck a land, so we're definitely have some opportunities here. Looks like they're just going to suicide. That was a good game. Wow. Super close, man. They pulled away so far. They swarmed the board and they just kind of stalled out with lands, and we just kind of had some very fortunate sequence. And maybe our opponent did not play around Embercleave in that one situation, but I certainly don't blame them. I mean, we don't necessarily look like an Embercleave deck. But yeah, taking out our Tear of the Peaks was super disruptive to our game plan. But yeah, Embercleave keeping our Gargaroth alive, and they didn't quite set up their blocks correctly. We were to keep that alive and get just that little bit of value to make some more creatures and gain some life to keep stabilizing. Seemed like almost would have been better off just going face with every turn with the Rin and Siri. Might have been a little bit better plan to keep our life total in check to really disincentivize us to attack at all. We were also stuck on green to not play our Kogla, but then they had the Selfless Savior anyway, which would have rendered our Kogla basically worthless. We would have to target the Savior, which isn't ideal, but yeah, Rin and Siri putting in some work there. Nicely done. Alright, against some Brockos. Haven't seen that in a while. It is pretty slow, but Quest Beast and Vivian is pretty sweet. We have the Intervention as a little bit of removal. So I think we'll give it a try, even though maybe we shouldn't. Turn 1 Goose. Because why wouldn't you have a Gilded Goose turn 1 in a Brawl format, right? Like, it's not like you only have one of them in your entire deck, but you always have it on, like, turn 1. I don't know, just kind of, it seems like it's kind of amazing how often that works on Arena. I don't know, maybe it works the same way in paper. It's been a while. Obviously, with life being what it is. But it just seems kind of weird how certain decks always seem to have certain cards at the right time. It's like, well, we do have our questing beast here. Insult cards, it could just have a removal spell. The Broncos, I'm not really sure how much removal they're doing. It's probably more of a mutate, I would assume. Obviously we're blocking because we attack and they just block themselves, so sure. I guess we'll go and get our creatures online first before we Vivian. Vivian's more of a card draw engine, really. Gargaroth. We're missing green. Could also Embercleave as well. That would have been 16 damage. Do we block? An Embercleave? Maybe not. Great hand. Okay, so they're effectively at 16. Why is Uro legal in Brawl? And they always seem to have it. When you play against a Sultai deck, you always see Uro at some point in the early turns. You have one in your entire deck, you always seem to have the Uro. God, that card is so stupid. That card is so stupid. Well, no lands, but we'd have Embercleave, so we're gonna go for it. Moraug with the Godzilla synergy. Bruh. Really? I mean, I'm taking it. You playing Uro and all this stuff? Come on, dude. No sympathy for you. No sympathy. Alright, we'll wrap it up there. Some pretty interesting games. Some nice and quick. Some pretty epic. Comeback there against the Brennan Siri. Pretty rough start against the Gadwick opponents, and then you know, pretty decent first win, and then the Brennan Siri matchup was pretty sweet, and then yeah, nice quick matchup against the Broncos deck. So I think that's as good a place as any to wrap up. Yeah, I really like the synergy here with the Godzilla card that doesn't see a ton of play, like at all. It's a super sweet card. It's very powerful for what it does. Have some nice synergistic things you can do with it, but get to play around with some cards you don't normally play with. You know, things like the Leafkin Avenger, even Renata has seemed like doesn't see any play anymore really. Embereth Skyblazer, which seemed like zero play, even though it's a rare, and it looks somewhat decent if you kind of squint a little bit. It looks semi-playable, at least for some jank purposes, but it's kind of my first time playing it here. These last couple of decks. Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm going to find a room for some Tuktuk Rubblefort action as well, getting that hasty, hopefully on our Zilortha, but and then just enough removal. But yeah, obviously we're more creature oriented. But yeah, trying to win with bigger creatures. Of course, we got the Embercleave as well to kind of make up for our lack of removal, and it works extremely well with our Cortwood Crasher, giving us kind of a trample something. That's what I'm looking for, trample. But yeah, I mean, like that that Moraug Zilortha combo at the end, where this gets +1/+0, and then of course Zilortha says your power rather than our toughness determines their lethal damage. I mean, we just swung into a 6/6 over Gargaroth, and our opponent was defenseless because our dude was an 8/8, and this became a 7/7. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, and then we can kind of keep it pretty simple with the pathways and the highlands to kind of have it split mana base here, so we can kind of hopefully play as consistently as possible. And I think in a Brawl format, you don't need like arcane signets really, unless you're like in 3 colors, or you have some other like kind of intense mana costs or activated abilities, things like that. I think you can keep it pretty simple. So we got the you know, the Caryatid and Cobra, things like that, along with some of the usual suspects. So kind of a lot of familiar faces for the Gruul Brawl list. Obviously, Rada sees a fair amount to play. I've definitely played against her a fair number of times. Of course, I've built her myself, but kind of a little bit different take on the Gruul Brawl format, if you will. So yeah, maybe you guys have some suggestions on some other cards that would fit in nicely that I overlooked, or maybe there's some other Brawl commanders you'd like to see me build around. Let me know. Otherwise, until next time, make sure you guys jank with purpose.